He owns at least 14 buildings in Jefferson, his realty interest being extensive and profitable in the county seat. Perhaps you've seen some of the aforementioned buildings. The Head Brothers Bank, built on the corner of State Street and Chestnut Street, which I'm now told houses apartments, a stationery shop, and a space for something called co-working. And perhaps the Head Opera House, which I'm told now shows not only pictures, but talking pictures. Realizing how important a road would be for the good people of Greene County, I was the largest contributor to the funds raised locally to build the Lincoln Highway. It has served the area well for many years. And because of that role, I was given the honor of unveiling the statue of Abraham Lincoln that graces our Greene County Courthouse lawn. I am well pleased to see that it still stands watch over the citizens of Jefferson and those traveling the Lincoln Highway. Now, before I return to my rest, I would like to say one last word. Perhaps one that is not utterly inappropriate for the spirit of Halloween. It regards the fantastic ravings of newspapermen. I speak, of course, about the article appearing in the April 15, 1897 issue of the Jefferson Bee, in which it was reported that a mystery airship had crashed into my property. A few selections from this farce should suffice. Up to the hour of going to press, 5 airships have been located by the enterprising citizens of Greene County. Airships know a good thing when they see it, and so when we heard of a flock of aerial pilgrims in Kansas, Nebraska, Omaha, Cedar Rapids, Northwood, Evanston, St. Paul, and Marshalltown, it became a settled conviction with us that it was only a question of time until they should be with us and taste the joys of our incomparable mud. 200 nervous Jefferson people scanned the horizon Saturday night. They looked for an airship. Along about 9:30, one came cavorting along the ethereal domain like a wash tub on a mill pond. It was a giddy thing, evidently fresh from the shops, and after arriving within 2 or 3 miles of the earth, began cutting all sorts of pigeon wings, grapevines, and double Dutch rolls. The sight was bewitching, and cheer after cheer ascended as the airship executed some difficult selection. And now, calamity. The concussion was so terrific that houses trembled, children were thrown from their beds, dishes fell in showers from cupboards, and hundreds of panes of glass were shattered. Men rushed, hatless, out upon the street, shouting for information as to the whereabouts of the airship. There was wild scurrying around to locate the point of contact, but the search was fruitless. The earth had evidently swallowed the aerial visitor and sealed the opening. Sunday morning, however, hundreds of men joined in the search, and about 9 o'clock, a huge circular hole, 20 feet in diameter, was discovered on the east side of Mahlon Head's celery patch, adjacent to the Northwestern Depot. Nonsense. No event took place like that. But the tale grows. And a newspaper man, who else, is lowered down to investigate. At the extreme end toward the bow, the bodies of 4 persons, probably men, were discovered, jammed almost to a pulp by the terrific force of the concussion. The beings were somewhat larger than earthly inhabitants, and each seemed to have a face on each side of the head, 2 sets of arms and legs, evidently so as to locomote forward or back without necessitating turning around. It would be quite interesting to go into the details concerning these strange people, but we must defer that until a future time. At all events, they were dead, both sides. Happy Halloween, and thank you.
Because he obviously embellished it and added to his original script. Very enjoyable, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Clancy and Mahlon. Now we're going to have a duet with Jennifer and Rick. We're going to play a piece called Creek Crunch Scream in spirit of the season. It's by David Bruce.
I don't know the composer or anything about him, but I thought this sounded like a fun piece to play. When I got invited to play for this event, I thought it would be more enjoyable to do some duets with the person playing piano. Here we go.
Thank you very much. I am going to, our next ghost is going to be Albert Head, and this is Albert Head's sword. It's on display at the museum back in our Civil War exhibit, and it was given to Austin McEwen, who is the grandfather of Wallace Teagarden, and Wallace Teagarden gave it to the museum in 2005. And it's an example, it's a really interesting example of how we're still learning things at the museum all the time. Someone was here last summer and he said, "Oh, that's a wrist breaker." And he explained to me that it was called a wrist breaker because it was so heavy and you could almost break your wrist when you swung it. And so I looked it up, and sure enough, it's a model 1840 cavalry saber. Its nickname was the Old Wrist Breaker because of its heavy, flat-back blade, and it weighs 2.5 pounds. When production ended in 1858, over 23,700 of them had been made. So it continued to be issued to Union cavalry during the Civil War as it was readily available. And it was also a popular sword with the Confederacy, so a lot of Confederate officers had it. Someone pointed out on Facebook just this week, so we're continuing to learn what an anomaly this was and how odd it is, because Albert Head was in the infantry. And this is a cavalry saber. But he said that even though that was unusual, he had come across some other Iowa infantry officers who had these cavalry sabers as their swords. And since his provenance is pretty good with Wallace Teagarden, I'm pretty sure this is actually Albert Head's sword. So if you get a chance, go back to the Civil War exhibit and take a look at it. And now I'm going to welcome Albert Head, Mahlon's brother, to the stage, and I will give you your sword. And here you go.
Good afternoon. I'm Albert Head, and I'm the brother of Mahlon Head, who you heard just recently. And I want to thank Mahlon for all the kind words that he said about me. But as you know, how all siblings do a little competition once in a while with each other, it seems that maybe some of Mahlon's recollections have commingled with my recollections. So we'll see how that goes. I was born in 1838. And I was an early day Jefferson land developer and banker. But before that, I proudly served as a captain in the 10th Iowa Volunteers during one of our country's costliest wars. I was wounded several times in various Civil War battles. But I'm proud to say I came home to Jefferson after beating the Confederate troops and began my journey to help build Jefferson into what it is today. Now, after returning to Jefferson, I began to acquire land, many acres of great Greene County land. At one time, I owned 4,300 acres across 6 Greene County townships. I own the land along the proposed Lincoln Highway out here on the S-curve. I'm sure many of you have driven that S-curve just east of Jefferson. And I also served as mayor of Jefferson, as well as 4 terms in the House of Representatives. My brother Mahlon also served in these political offices too. However, I was selected as Speaker of the House in the mid-1800s. I was also trustee of the Drake University at that time, and I also served as president of the State Agricultural Society. So, between my politics and agronomy interests, I kept myself pretty active. I had always been an avid reader, loved to read. And when the ladies of the Federated Friday Club needed a place to house Jefferson's first library, I graciously offered 2 rooms over my Greene County bank that I owned. Now this bank was located 202 East State Street, which, as Mahlon said, which is currently housing Gravitate, co-working, and right next to Warm Wishes on the corner, and just west of the Sierra Theater. Gave those 2 rooms to the ladies rent-free for 1 year after it was voted to have a library in Jefferson. Those Friday Club ladies were always doing something good for the community, so I felt obliged to help them. And I served as a member of the first library board in 1901. It's one of the best things I ever did for the community. Another thing that I was proud to do happened in 1918. I was invited to speak at the unveiling of the Lincoln statue here in Jefferson. I recited quotations from the first and second inaugural address of our great President Lincoln, and also lines from Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. It was quite a day indeed, and Lincoln has stood on the grounds of our Greene County Courthouse, reminding all of us of the sacrifices that were made to hold the Union together ever since. And as an officer of the Civil War, I was proud and humbled to speak that day. Now, along with my brother Mahlon, we built the Head Hotel, which is now known as the Lincoln Square, or the Lincoln Building. The Lincoln Highway at that time was starting to bring people into our community, and we felt that we needed some fine, upper-class lodging for them to stay. So we built that beautiful hotel right across from the Lincoln statue. We also enjoyed live entertainment, and so we built Head's Opera House, which is known today as the Sierra Theater. We had many fine theatrical productions that happened there. But there's one little story that's kind of a favorite of mine that I'd like to share with you before we depart for today. The town of Cottonwood was located on my land, northwest of Jefferson, northwest of Shebang, in fact. The railroad built a spur line into the area in 1882. So I decided to take that spur line into the area, and when I stepped off the train, I looked around at all the beauty of the prairie land, and I said, well, isn't this a daisy? You know? Soon the town was known as a daisy. So now you know the rest of the story on how the small town of Adaiza really got its name. It's a daisy. At the age of 84, in 1922, I passed from this earth. Today I want to thank you for attending, and when you look at that statue, that Lincoln statue across the street that has hid for so many years, please remember what he and I stood for. A union that would forever be unbroken. Thank you.
Now we're going to have Jennifer and Rick yet again.
called Grandmother Tells a Ghost Story by Kulak. It must be a German composer because there's parentheses with the title in German. I thought Grandmother Tells a Ghost Story would fit in well also because we're kind of telling ghost stories, bringing back people who have gone before us.